Hi everybody, welcome back to another edition of The Watch Collector. My name's Ollie. Today we've got a particularly exciting piece, but before we get into it, the obligatory wristwatch check, and I'm wearing the Patek Philippe 5726A, which is their annual calendar in their Nautilus model range. Quick shout out, thank you so much to Mappin & Webb for sorting out the repolishing of this. It was my first ever Patek Philippe, and I still love it today as much as I did when I first bought it, so thank you. Before we talk about the Armin Strom mirrored force resonance watch, which is what we've got today, let's have a little bit of history. I want to talk about Christian Huygens from the 17th century, who was a physicist, astronomer, and a study of the forces on bodies. Now, specifically, what are we thinking about here? And it was he actually who discovered the effect of synchronization of pendulums, i.e. if you put one, let's say, next to each other on a bar, then the resonance will slowly start to make its way between the two of them and they will end up in synchronization. Now, you think to yourself, why is he waffling on about this rubbish now? Because actually this is precisely what we're referring to in this watch. And Huygens was of such renown that Sir Isaac Newton called him the best writer of those times. So 17th century, he was extremely highly regarded. And this watch should be highly regarded. Armin Strom is no stranger to, or certainly I'm no stranger to their watches, and I've reviewed a couple of them. In particular, I recall one with Californian Californian dial, which I loved. Super simplistic, very pretty. This one is the opposite end of the scale, at about £55,000 plus tax. This is not for the faint-of-hearted, but I hope you'll agree this is something that is pretty special. So what we've got is we have not one but two balance wheels, and what's happening is they have used the application of the theory of resonance to have one oscillating in the opposite direction to the other. Now, the idea of this is to create a watch that is more accurate, less prone to vibrations, less prone to shaking, and ultimately, as I mentioned, create a much more accurate timepiece than what you would get with a historically sort of expected movement. Now, what was also pretty clear from this dial is Armin Strom have done away with their sort of idiosyncratic and very identifiable bridges. Their lesser models are pretty much defined by those looks. They don't have that here, and I think that's a good thing for two reasons. One, it enables the dominance of the resonance system to come through, and B, I think what it also does is it provides a slightly more rounded, perhaps sexiness to the dial that, in my view, and of course this is purely subjective, the other models can lack a little bit Germanic, and I hope that doesn't offend anyone too much, but this certainly has a really nice balance of curvature, roundness, but with still some clinical finishing, particularly with the striations on the dial. The case is stainless steel with brushed and satin finishing, brushed on the bezel, and satin finishing on the flank. You've got slightly stepped lugs, which provide a kind of a robustness to the look of the watch, but without being overwhelming. I think overall, and particularly with the really rather pretty blue dial and blue subdial, it has a nice contrast to it. If we flip it over, Armin Strom have always been known for their excellent movements, and this one is of course no different, as you would expect. This has a depth of up to 50 meters, so you can actually use this as a sports watch, particularly bearing in mind, as I said, that resonance feature which makes it much less prone to the effects of vibrations and shock, and with the alternate finishings of brushing with satinization, it really is overall very pretty. So let's throw it on, see how it wears. So this is obviously a brand new strap. I'm not going to not going to break it by fixing it to my wrist. But actually, as hopefully you can see, certainly on my size wrist, this is an almost perfect size. The way that the strap actually is embedded to within the lugs, it really fits beautifully. The fact that you've got the bezel that's domed slightly, I should say actually it's not domed, it's more sloped. It will certainly, without doubt, fit under a dress cuff, and just that element of that, the resonance movement, my God, makes such a difference to the look of this watch. So overall, as I mentioned, this is not for the faint-hearted at £55,000 plus tax. But just imagine this: you take this technology, and let's think about for example, the FP Journe chronometrical resonance. You put this technology and label it with one of the so-called Holy Trinity. You're talking about significantly more than that asking price. Overall, they're my views. I'd love to know what you think. That's enough from me. That's the Armin Strom Mirrored Force Resonance Watch. I'd love to know what you think. Thanks so much for joining.